Yo, this is Lanzo on your video for Dro TV of Culture Shock. Make sure you keep it right where you got it, because we're going to get fucking high, bro.
Welcome to My First Time, the show about your first time getting high on marijuana. I'm your host, Mike Freeman with Dro TV. Today, I'd like to welcome our guest, Lanzo.
You can bomb us to pieces, but you can't put peace in bombs. Will you please help me welcome the man that says, we do it for the love, not for the likes. It's all about substance and not about the hype. Help me welcome Mr. Michael.
What's happening?
And not a lot. Just thank you for having me.
Yes, we appreciate you giving us some time coming on the show. You can find more of Lanzo and Kulcha Shok Muzik on Facebook and Instagram at Kulcha Shok. All the links will be in the description below. So, Lanzo, for those in our audience that may not know much about you, let everybody know where you're located and how you started Kulcha Shok Muzik.
I'm based in Miami. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. And Culture Shock started because myself personally as a DJ was becoming, I don't like, just from a business standpoint, I was trying to take the business part of me out of it because all these personal checks. So I started Culture Shock. And at that point too, I was obviously expanding and growing, creating more of a business style motto behind myself. And I wanted some of the attention off of me.
Okay.
So I started promoting more Culture Shock than I do Lanzo. I went to school for speech communications with an emphasis on radio. So, I believe it or not, there is a shy side of me, in two different ways. Sometimes I like attention and sometimes I don't like attention. And this kind of took some of the attention off of me that I didn't want. The other thing I'm shy with are females. So Culture Shock was a good crutch for me.
Okay.
And it made more business sense. That way, me as a person couldn't get sued. The company was getting sued. You could only sue me for whatever the company was worth, if that was ever the case, which has never happened. But I kind of learned about that afterwards. So that's kind of how it started from my mental perspective. But what really helped start it was my mother, who passed away from cancer. And before she passed, she has 3 boys, and she wanted as many of our dreams to come true while she was still alive. So she bought me a full sound system. I mean, I had 8 JBL speakers.
Wow.
They were trapezoids. They were the concert series. They were like what everybody was using back then in the late 90s. And so that's how I financially started. But it was something I was ready to start, had actually already started the year before, but this way it helped me launch it in the way I wanted to with the assistance of my mother.
Right. Wow. Well, sorry to hear about your mom. At least it's something that sounds like you've used this business as a way to honor her as well and what she did for you.
Exactly. And, and I'm grateful for that question, because I don't always get to talk about her, because she was one that really put it to the level that it is, or helped get it to, she helped me with that first big step,
That's great. Well, of all the years you've been doing it, I'm sure she'd be proud of you. So
yeah, thank you, man.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So maybe this will lighten it up. I don't know. I don't know your story. So the show's my first time, Lanso. Let us know about the story of the first time you got high.
Well, from what I'm told, I was 4 years old.
4. Okay.
We were at a house party with some
Okay.
good close friends,
Okay.
and and my parents smoked. All their friends pretty much smoked. We were at this house party, and everybody, I don't remember what everybody was doing at the big table. We always sat around this big table. I'm sure it was eating food and whatever, but I knew it wasn't cigarettes, but there was something on the ashtray,
Mhm.
and they kept drawing for that. So I just took it myself, and I took a little puff. And, I don't know if I got high, but that was my first experience of actually taking in the ganja. And,
Wow.
but the first time I can tell you, I know I got high for sure, I was 8 years old, because I used to take the bus to school, and there were some older kids at my bus stop, and we used to light fires every day in the winter. And that was also to help the smell. So when we were going to school,
Sure.
and eventually it got passed to me,
Okay.
and that's where it started. And I was smoking almost every day before school at 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you been smoking every day since?
No, I quit 10 years later.
Okay.
I could tell you the date and where I was. I was October 14th, 1984 at Reynolds Coliseum in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a Billy Idol concert on the second level.
Wow.
I didn't completely quit at that time, because I was going to school in North Carolina. I used to do those long drives to Miami,
Wow.
and that stuff used to help me out a lot. But one of the main reasons I quit was I ended up finding out I had some sort of a bronchial lung problem,
Okay.
and I still have it to this day. It gets aggravated sometimes during the winter if I get sick. I don't get sick too often, but once in a while I'll have the bronchial problem come up again. And what happened was I was smoking so much in my freshman year in high school that it was literally, our motto was, every breath I take by the police was like literally a bong hit. Okay.
Wow.
And what ended up happening a later part of the year, there was a cycle starting. And what happened was I would get sick and I'd lay off. I'd get better, be in bed for like 2 days and lay off like 3 or 4 days. And then I'd be fine for a while, and it became a cycle. And I kind of got tired of that cycle, to be honest.
Yeah.
My health has always been very important to me. And as much as I loved smoking and getting high, my health was more important. And I don't think it was really the ganja. I think it was just the smoke I was taking into my lungs.
Right.
Was because I'm still a very big advocate of ganja, marijuana, CBD, Delta 8, all of it. I think we haven't even scratched the surface of what this plant can do. Everybody still thinks I smoke. I mean, any room I'm in, it still gets passed to me. It still gets offered to me. I'm giving it all the time. And, sometimes I just don't say no, because it seems like I say no all the time. And some people are taking offense to it. So sometimes I'll take it. But if you ask me, I'm going to tell you I don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like I said, I'm a huge advocate of it, and I will always support it in any way that I can, other than indulging in it, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just tell you a little story, because just the other day I was at a friend's house, and this guy has his medical card, and I swear to God, this guy he had a whole drawer full of different tastes, right? And he actually had hash.
Wow.
And hash was like one of the things I loved the most. That high to me was the best high. Just smooth, clean, and just mellow, not too over the top, not too drowsy, not too dopey. And he had some, and I was like, oh man, if I were ever this would be good. This could easily be the moment that I indulge. But it wasn't like the hash that I grew up on, that was always in cubes. We always had I can't remember the name of it. It was called blonde something. And man, it was the best. And I'm not going to say never, because over the years I've still partaked. It's very rare. The last time I probably did was my son's mother asked me when we were together, and I think that was the last time. And he's 11 now, so
Okay.
it's been a few years.
Wow. Oh, well, I mean, like you said, you're still an advocate and promoting.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have people like yourself out there that are knowledgeable and can explain the ins and outs to maybe layman's isn't the word, but there's a lot of newbies that are coming out, and uh, they only need a little bit of education. They don't need a lot. It doesn't take much to kind of break it down for people. And so, especially with your experience, so you don't mess around with edibles, or you
No,
still
I never liked edibles. Like even when we used to do pot brownies
okay?
back in the days, or cookies, and that stuff those things knocked me out.
Yeah.
They were just like, those things killed me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't like those at all. I mean, it tasted great. I used to love brownies, and I used to love cookies. So that was the good part. But once those things kicked in, it was like, it felt more like drugs to me, to be honest.
Right.
Just because I think it was a lot more potent, and I didn't like that, and I didn't really like, I wasn't much of a drug user. I tried everything pretty much, and that kind of felt like that in it, because people have said, oh, well, why don't you do edibles? I haven't done the new edibles. I only know the original edibles. And, most of the new edibles are actually, the contents are stuff that I don't eat. It's a lot of artificial colors and sugar, and
Yeah.
I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'm all natural.
Yeah, that is one thing with it's like it's all candy and junk food that they put the stuff in. So it's as a healthy guy myself, it's something that I struggle with because that's how I'm able to consume it now until I can figure out or take the time to make it myself.
I mean, that might be an avenue for somebody that's listening, that, hey, make healthy edibles.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, there's so much room, there's been so much growth in the last 2 years. It's like, because I do a lot of cannabis and CBD events, especially like, that's how I got involved with Florida Grow Fest. I mean, we've known each other for a very long time, but we've only been working like the last 2 years, and um, that's been one of my platforms to get involved in those events. And I've been involved with a couple others, like Conifest up there by you at Renegers, in what's that town over there called? Um, anyway, they're coming up in October. They're there they have a Conifest here in Florida, and they have one up in Pennsylvania. It's a really big one. The one, if I heard, in Pennsylvania gets like 100,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so it's something I'm excited, and reggae and ganja just have such a strong connection.
Sure.
That a lot of people probably don't even know why or how. People know about 420, but how does that relate to reggae? And you know, ganja for the Rasta man is a sacrament.
Right.
So
So we were talking before. You first came on our radar when we saw you at the Grove Fest in Orlando here, and So who are some of the big names that you've DJ'd for that have just blown you away? I saw on your page for the Whalers, you were maybe not necessarily DJing, but I mean, you're certainly the MC. So like with all the shows you've done, Lanto, what are some of like the top ones that you've been ecstatic?
That's a hard question because there's so many. There's probably only a handful of artists that are on my radar that I'd like to, be the MC for before I go on, before my duties are come to an end. And it's easier to say who I haven't done than who I have.
Okay.
Obviously working Cali Roots has been a big one for me.
Okay.
Because that's now the biggest reggae festival in the country. I actually worked Sunsplash the last year they had it in Jamaica before they brought it back.
Wow.
That was a dream come true. And I did that early on in my career, but it was also at a time when Sunsplash had lost a lot of its luster and they were on the way out. I can say more about shows than I can say artists, so to speak. And I'll just say this, like Jimmy Cliff is one of the few people on my list that I would really like to do before my MC duties come to a close. And,
right.
I've never met him, but briefly, and I watched his movie as a kid, which was one of the biggest introductions for me to reggae besides Peter Tosh. That was the second biggest influence for me, seeing that movie play in my neighborhood at our local little theater down in Coconut Grove in Miami.
Wow.
And but there's definitely been some memorable moments, some of them memorable for different reasons. For instance, a memorable one was it was somewhere in the Bahamas. I think it was Nassau. And the third radio station the first radio station I actually ever worked in Miami, because I started in North Carolina, was a all Caribbean station. I was probably the only white American person there that was on the radio. And the station was heard, it's an AM station, so AM frequencies carry. And the Bahamas used to hear me in the daytime when I was on filling in, or early on Saturday nights when I was on Saturday nights for 10 years. And that's kind of where I first really made my name in reggae.
Okay.
And I went over there, this company, ironically enough, named Kulcha Shok,
Okay.
the correct spelling, went and brought me over. This was like one of their first big productions, and they were a t-shirt company. And they brought me over and they gave me the mic. And I was introducing Barrington Levy, which was probably at that time, probably the biggest artist I'd ever introduced. And this was in the early 90s. So it had to be before 96 because I didn't have Culture Shock. It was probably like 93, 94 when I was really catching on, and I didn't know how popular I was. And so they gave me the mic and I stood behind the speaker box for a minute, which I don't know why I did that, but I did. When I walked out, the whole place went like, they were so surprised. Yeah, they were, wow. They couldn't believe I was white. And I was there with a pretty predominantly Bahamian black crowd, and they couldn't believe it. And then I blew them away as an MC, and it was just a phenomenal. And I'll tell you that, something to that same extent was probably the most memorable show of all times, was at Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
There there was these pretty prominent reggae awards called the Tamika Reggae Awards, and it was named after the founder's daughter, and they were basically honoring everybody in reggae. And he was like, "Oh, why should I let you be an MC or a host or present an award?" And I was like, "Well, look, I don't know if you know, but I'm a Caucasian. I'm very much into reggae. I'm very knowledgeable. I know what I'm doing. I work on the only 24-hour Caribbean station in the country at the moment. New York had a lot of Caribbean programs and a lot of block programming, but they didn't have a 24-hour." And he's like, "Okay, I think I might be able to, bring a different element." And he liked that. He's like, "All right, we're going to put you on. I'll fly you up. Obviously not going to pay you." I said, "That's fine. And I'll put you up. We have a sponsor." And I went out there, and I think Buju Banton had just come off the stage, right? And by this time I was a host. And I went out there, and the people went crazy when I back announced Buju, right? I mean, this was like one of the smaller venues, but it still was like 20, probably 30,000 people, 20,000 easily. And the place was full. And I went out there and, whatever, got that crowd all hyped up. I walked away from the podium, and I walked out to the middle of the stage, and I started doing all the Jamaican dances, and the place erupted, dude. I mean, they got so excited, they scared me. I thought the roof was literally going to come off. And I contacted the guy over the years, asking him for the tape of that. And it was all tied up in lawsuits and everything. Wow. Because I guess they didn't get all the rights, and I never got to see it. But that was probably the most memorable emceeing, hosting I've ever done to this day. The other ones were definitely, big ones. And I can't really pinpoint one artist, but I can pinpoint, those are a couple examples. And that one's by far the most memorable. And, I made a name in New York real quick.
Yeah, wow, those are a couple incredible stories, Lance. So thank you for sharing those. Jimmy Cliff, he's still performing?
Yes, he is. He like probably in the last 2 months has released a new single.
Wow.
That supposedly he's working on an album. His last album he did with what's the guy's name from Rancid? Tim Armstrong. He did an EP with Tim Armstrong that was decent. It was, you could tell it was a kind of a happy medium. Like Tim got to do some of his stuff, Jimmy got to do some of his stuff, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't anything like on a classic level. But Jimmy now, where I met him in Cannes, France.
Wow.
There's the largest at least at the time, it was the largest music expo conference in the world. It's called Midem, and it's in Cannes, France. It's in the southern part of France. And Cannes is pretty famous for, they have the film festival. They do all kinds of, it's big. And Midem was huge. And every year what they do is they have a host country. And that year it was Jamaica. So the focus was on Jamaica and reggae music, and it was amazing. And Jimmy told me that he lived in France and has been living there since then. I don't know if it still is, but up until recent times that I know of, France was the leading country in the world in forms of supporting reggae music. Wow. Like buying tickets, buying music, going to the shows, and just financially supporting reggae in the strongest form, which at the end of the day, in these days and times, that's the most important for most people to sustain themselves. But I know France really is a leader in reggae music, and they even have some of their own great artists that headline now, in Europe as a whole, so.
Yeah. Wow, that's excellent. Yeah, France. I'm in the hip hop music scene, and
Okay.
France is one of the biggest countries for rap. I mean, their whole rap scene. They certainly pay attention to the U.S. rap, but I mean, they have a whole like hierarchy of French rappers over there, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
I can't remember the name, but there was I know that I think it was Gentleman who's from Germany, but speaks English and started out singing in English, and now he's kind of going back to German, and he has a single that he released with I think a French hip hop artist, but I didn't know them. I don't really know hip hop. I know old school hip hop. I know
sure.
Boogie Down, and I know leaders of the new school, Jungle Brothers, De La Soul. That's my hip hop, and I used to
Yeah.
DJ that stuff, and I still have all those records. That's the hip hop I know. There was kind of a little resurgence for me with Tupac and Biggie, but that stuff was kind of even a little too commercial for me.
Sure.
But now I appreciate it more. When it's poppy, you kind of get sick of it, and then when it comes back around, you kind of like it more. Like there's even songs when I was a kid that I hated all my life, and then I hear them now, it's like that ain't too bad. You know what I mean? But that's the extent of my hip hop. But
Yeah.
so I mean, I like some of my first gigs in Miami were hip hop and dancehall.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's got the huge, I mean, Two Live Crew and the whole bass, the whole bass scene.
Yeah, and Rick Ross,
Rick
he's
Ross,
here
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Flow Rider, they're
yeah,
all here,
yeah.
and what's his name? Geez, I just forgot his name. There's two of them. There was a Trick Daddy,
Trick Daddy, yeah.
and
Slip and
what was the
Slide.
Queen? And what's that?
Well, Slip and Slide was the
Yeah.
Trina. Trina
Yeah,
was
Trina was the
yeah.
other one. Those are the two I was thinking of, because my brother directed. I actually was in one of his videos where he went back to his project apartments, and we shot, his video there. My brother was the director, and I actually got to be in the video. I don't think it made the cut, but
Wow. This was one of Trick
Funny.
Daddy's videos?
yeah, I was there on hand. Like I
Cool.
said, I don't think I got in it. I think it was the what was the one that was kind of like real slow tempo beat? That was one of his biggest songs, but it shows where he grew up, the projects he grew up in Liberty City
Okay.
or Overtown.
Might have been I'm a Thug, maybe.
I'm a Thug. That's it. That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. My brother directed it. If
Wow, that's cool. So I'm actually 40 years old, Lanso, and
Okay.
I grew up on mostly 90s hip hop, but like Boogie
Okay.
Down Productions, De La Soul, like I listened to all of that stuff. I prefer
Okay.
that genre. Because like you said, the 90s was like really commercial and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
so
But I think that that's kind of what put hip hop where it is today. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That was kind of the platform. So I mean, I'm not a hater. I love music. You know what I mean? It just like I said, I appreciate it more now. It just we all have different energies and different vibes, and different things resonate with us. And at the time it wasn't resonating with me, but it's weird. It kind of does now a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's what's great about art and music in general is everyone has their own flavors, their own tastes, and you can love something, I can like it, and we both can still be happy and enjoy what we love. So
And we can, and you cannot like it, and I cannot like it, but we can. You know what I mean? It can even go that far.
yeah. Awesome, Lanso. Make sure you go down there and follow Culture Shock. The links will be in the description below. So make sure if you're on Instagram or Facebook to check out Lanso and everything he has going on. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you go down and smash that like button, as they say, and let us know what you thought of Lanso and some of his incredible stories. The history is amazing. I'm sure we could talk for another half hour. So I appreciate your time, my friend. If you said there's a festival coming up in October, November here in Orlando?
Yeah, it's called Kana Fest.
Okay.
It's at Renegers. It's right outside of Orlando. I can't remember what it's called. It's slipping me right now.
That's okay. Is it something
it's
that
up-
you're emceeing?
Yeah, I usually do MC. They just announced it like about a week ago. So I think it's October 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th. It's
Okay.
usually the first weekend in October.
I'm definitely going to look that up. And I'm sure you have quite the network of connections. But if you're up here, and there's anything you need, you please let me know. I'm just down the street. So, and I'm hoping
Okay.
to definitely go to the event and meet you in person. And
Yeah, I think they do it free, and they have the amount of vendors they have is incredible.
wow, okay,
You know,
really looking forward to it.
So
Then.
it's I don't as I recall, it's never really cost anything. So everybody can come, and it's really. I mean, I can't. I wish I could remember the town because, like, you just think the cops would be all over it, and you don't even see a cop. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah,
Really nice
awesome.
event.
Well, Lanso, thanks again. Let everybody know where they can follow you.
Yeah, the best places to find me are kulchashok.com, KULCHASHOK.com, because there's 11 pages there. There's a
Okay.
radio station, there's artists, there's a little bit of surfing, which I'm a big fan of. There's, my history, my story, a little more in depth. We have a store, we have events page, we have a lot going on, and it's really all there on the Kulcha Shok page. For the social media, we recommend Instagram, and it's the same spelling, Kulcha Shok. We're also on YouTube, but it's Kulcha Shok Muzik. We lost the passcode for the original one, so we started a new one a couple years ago. The Facebook, we've got a new Facebook, but I'm not really doing Facebook too much. So Instagram and kulchashok.com are the best ones.
Okay, awesome, sweet. Well, dude, I appreciate it again. It was an awesome time. Always like when I can learn something, and I definitely did. So thank you very much. To everyone tuned in to Dro TV, thank you as well. We appreciate you. And until next time, smoke them if you got them.